Hold up.
So we are really, really excited about today because a lot of people within SMU do work or want to do work with people who do white collar services or white collar products for business owners. And I think it's an industry that leaves us a little bit like unsure of what the next steps are or what the best strategy is. So that's why we're super excited to have you today, Molly. One thing I do want to say is you don't have to be nervous. If you don't know the answers to something, that's perfectly acceptable. Answer what you know, and we'll work from there. So feel free to give all of us, the SMU crew, and I kind of a rundown about your business a little bit.
Great. Yes. So, hello, my name's Molly Hall, and I have a business called Hiring and Empowering. And what we do is we do hiring for small business owners. We focus on primarily solopreneurs. Our sweet spot is people that are hiring their very first employee and shaking in their boots. And we support them with the hiring process in addition to the training process to really create what we call entrepreneurs in entrepreneurs world. So we take them through our Team Empowerment Academy, and the goal is to get them to really have the same level of tenacity and investment and take ownership within their role as you do as an entrepreneur.
So cool. So cool. So tell us a little bit about so far what your clientele has been like and what your dream clients are like, just a little bit of the rundown on that.
Sure. So currently, our clientele is attorneys. We fell into that space about 21 years ago. Lainey, my business partner, who's in Austin, Texas, and myself, I'm located in Denver, Colorado. We both worked for state and elder law attorneys and really got in the trenches and started just trying to free up our entrepreneurs so they can focus on building the business. And through that, people would say, how can we clone you? How can we clone you? And through that, Lainey and I just slowly started documenting everything that we are doing. We've written two books, one called Don't Be a Yes Chick and the other one called Entrepreneurs in Entrepreneurs World. So we fell into that industry by pure tenacity of being really great employees for our attorneys. And then through that, we started branching out more and more with our ideal client is somebody like you all possibly, a small solo attorney may or may not have a brick and mortar building, and they're just burned out. They're working day and night trying to manage kids, trying to manage households. A lot of people have other careers and businesses or visions that they want to work on and are ready to up level and go to the next level and work on some creative projects. So we like to take them from the place of shaking in their boots to hiring their first employee to hiring their second employee. So ideally, we'd like to expand out of just the attorney space and go into a space that has some more kind of consciouspreneur, heart-centered business owners as well that are doing some really fun stuff.
That's amazing. Okay. So how long have you been in business for? Did you say it was just a couple of years so far?
We started our business in 2008, and I was a partner in another business where I was very, very active, working 50, 60, 70 hours, and Lainey was involved in another business as well. So we sort of hung our shingle, and we tiptoed in it, and we were lucky to make a little bit money, get a couple of clients, and it wasn't until I finally had the courage to get out of my quote unquote full-time job and focus on this in April 2016. So since then, I've really put my entire focus and time and energy and effort into that business once I was ready to kind of close that back door and not have something that gave me a steady paycheck.
Yep, absolutely. So you've been a full-time entrepreneur for a while now.
Yes.
That's amazing. Most of the people who are in SMU are newer to being entrepreneurs, but they've always had, an inkling that they like an inclination towards social media or entrepreneurship. So it's kind of cool to bring your expertise of having been an entrepreneur for a long time, but combining it with some of our newer ideas, because we've got some kind of crazy cool ideas for marketing and social media. Just so I know, for my reference, if you are watching this and you have currently a client who is working in professional services or professional products, comment in the chat so I know who is currently working with clients in the white collar industry, which, as you guys know, is very different than the beauty industry, the ugly industries, the blue collar work, the manual labor. But if you do, just comment in the chat so I know. And if you don't yet, but it's something you want to branch into, say me in the chat so I know who's wanting to secure people in the white collar industries. So cool. Looks like a couple people already do. I'm willing to bet a lot of people want to go into them. Okay, so Molly, tell me a little bit about your current, I guess, method and system for client attraction right now. Like, what have you done so far? What has worked the best? And what hasn't worked so far?
Okay, great. So our current client attraction has been by and large by referral base. We have been blogging since 2008, pretty actively at a minimum of two to three times a week. And by and large, that is how we have gotten our business. Blogging to our existing database, always offering new services to them. And we hired a social media person probably about 2 years ago. She just started going through SMU with you, Rachel, and she's starting to really do Facebook ads and Facebook boosts for us. So we've been fortunate enough to get most of our business by blogging and then also offering webinars to our existing clients. And way back in the past, we would get our clients from doing trade shows.
Yes. Okay. So it sounds like you put in a lot of groundwork with blogging, because that's not an easy way to get clients. But as you know, when you have a catalog of tons of content, suddenly it starts to pay off. Like those first couple of blog posts don't. You're
No.
like, why am I doing this? And then before you know it, you start getting people from that. Is it okay with you if we share with everybody who you've been working with?
Yes, of course.
One of our favorites. It is, well, she's got a new last name now. I feel like I'm not going to get the last name right, but it's Rosalind, guys.
Yes.
And she's
Yeah.
amazing. We all love Rosalind. She's so great. So, okay. So what I'd love to hear is what hasn't worked. So you've done trade shows, you've done blogging, you've done a lot of referrals, and that's been a good source of business and clients for you. What hasn't worked so far for you?
Well, what has not worked for us is direct mail. We've tried that in the past and very, very expensive and very low return on investment from a lead generation perspective, in addition to buying clients. We have also tried doing ads in paper and publications in our industry back when we did that with attorney publications. Very expensive. We did not get a great return on, we got no return actually on that as well. And then when we launched our book, we spent a tremendous amount of money on a PR company. They took a picture of our book and they posted it in Times Square and launched that. They did an entire PR wire media boost for us, and it was a one and done. We got a few leads, but nobody had any relationship with us. So there was a very difficult way to nurture it. We also didn't back then, we did not have an email generation campaign like a CRM program like Active Campaign or anything of that nature. So it was a bust from that perspective as well, because we really didn't have that nurturing and campaign in place.
Yep, definitely. So is there an email nurturing campaign in place now?
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, we actually, for what we are going to be doing, we finally, because of you, Rachel, we've been able to really pay attention to the click funnels and that space. So we have somebody working on our very first funnel. We're hoping to launch it within the next week or two, and we're really excited. They're actually going to be two different funnels that they're going to pour into.
That's super, super exciting. So one of the let me ask one last question before I give
Sure.
all suggestions. So when you think about over the next 3 months, the cool part is that you have somebody already in place who can implement any suggestions or strategies, which is awesome. But if you were to say, okay, these are my top 3 goals over the next 3 to 6 months, without just saying revenue, because revenue is always the number one
Yes.
goal. I feel like we almost can like cross that off the list of goals. Would
Mhm.
you, and to give you a couple of different ideas, would you say it's to become a thought leader in the space? Is it to decrease your cost per lead? Is it to increase the one-on-one conversations? What would you say are the main 3 goals over the next 3 to 6 months for you guys?
I would say number one is actually to eliminate the one-on-one conversations and to have people that are able to click into our funnel and buy the lost leaders, so to speak, to purchase a low-level introductory item, and then we'll be able to nurture them by webinars and in our funnels, our email marketing would be number one, and I can explain why with that. Number two is to have our Team Empowerment Academy and have most of our communication and relationship building based in that subscription based model. Right now, we do a tremendous amount of one on one coaching and consulting, and it is so labor intensive. And, when you break down the hours and the ROI, it's not very effective. And the burnout rate's very, very high for Lainey and I. And then the third would be to get us more to get our writing out there, to get a hook arms and lock arms with publications, blogging, what have you, and just really be able to have more of our voice and our wisdom shared through the writing space than, one-on-one conversations.
Yes, yes. Okay, so a couple of questions that I have. So when you said you wanted to explain the lack of, or the release of the one-on-one conversations, you guys need automation. You're running out of time, aren't you?
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. There was a day and time when the one-on-one conversation would be great and people would buy from that. But I find a lot of times when I offer the 30-minute complimentary consultation, before getting a commitment from them, whether it be a 14.99 something, there's a saying that you have to write a check to be fully invested. I find that I just as a natural coach and consultant, they end up hanging up and get a bag full of tips and techniques and tricks and widgets, and then they think that they just hit the lottery. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I don't need to buy from you. Let me take the next 6 months to implement this, which we all know they never do. And then we'll hear from them again, and it will typically be about 4 6 months, and then they want another booster shot where they get a bunch of tips and techniques.
Yes. Okay. That makes a ton of sense. Tell me a little bit about the price points and the range of prices for somebody from, the 14.99 investment to or premium services. What does that look like?
Okay, great. So we have an 8 module team empowerment program that people can buy, and they'll get 8 modules with a bunch of tools and a copy of our book, actually, a copy of both of our books, and they can use that as a training module for $14.99. It's a one time transaction fee. From there, we would up level them into our Team Empowerment Academy, very much like SMU, that has the modules and the different folders and places for them to go from hiring to interviewing to job descriptions, et cetera, for $49 a month.
Yeah.
And then from there, they would up level into our smart hire process for when they're ready to build their team, which includes the complete hiring process from placing an ad to doing phone interviews, video interviews, and then giving them a complete interviewing process and a 90-day training process. That's $2,500. And then they can move it into our VIP strategy day, where we will do it either half day via webinar like this for 3,500, or we come into their office boots on the ground for 7,500.
Wow. So you've got a great value ladder already built in to
Yeah.
the entire company. That's amazing. So do you know, I know it can be tough to know the numbers. Do you know when somebody gets into your sphere, what they're worth on average in terms of revenue? And I know that's so hard without having an in-depth look and analysis at the numbers. Do most people end up at the $29 monthly rate, or do they end up at the $3,500? Once somebody gets into your sphere, what do you assume is going to be where they end up?
Where they end up is the 7,500. Get
Wow.
boots on the ground, get us in there. Um, right now we're at a point where we need to hire and duplicate and replace us because
Yes.
Lainey and I don't want to be on a plane 24/7. So that's not our ideal. If each one of us can offer one a month, we would be delighted and happy. Most entry points, though, come in at the Smart Hire at $2,500. Because it is such a niche specific, most people have to go to a recruiting agency. They have to pay them 10 to 20% of the folks' annual salary. It's very, very costly. So we made our model very different. We call ourselves hiring versus recruiting for that very perspective. And most people come in there because they have immediate need. They're exhausted. And if we can get them in there, then they actually move back into the 49 Team Empowerment Academy. And then they move up into the VIP strategy day.
Okay. So a couple of different thoughts that I have. So number one, the most important thing that you need to do, obviously, is to become more leveraged. There, like you said, there's only two of you guys. And so anytime that you're getting on the phone with somebody, it's going to have to stop at some point, unless somebody is literally a $7,500 potential client. It doesn't make sense for you to be spending your time with them because your time is at a premium cost right now.
Yes.
So hopping on even a sales call is going to be getting tougher and tougher. Do you spend a lot of time on calls with prospective clients currently? Like, do you spend a lot of time doing sales calls?
I do, yes. And I anticipate once we launch our first funnel that's only going to increase more. So I do. And most of them are very high fact finders living in analysis paralysis. And but if I can get them on that call, what I do is I take feverish notes and of their pain points, etc. And I immediately hit the keyboard and start writing my blogs. And I use their exact words in the subject line and start writing into it. But I do spend a lot of time. I do all the sales call. Lainey does not. She is more on stage. She's a quick start. She's very much on stage. And we've done a tremendous amount of assessments to figure out what each of our unique abilities. Mine's one-on-one. Hers is more so on stage. She gets very frustrated and aggravated. So I'm the one who's doing the one-on-one. So
Yes.
it's just me. So obviously, my capacity is very limited.
Yes. So something or many different points in this process are taking up a lot of time from you. And so if I were to walk in, and the cool thing is, like, Rosalind knows how to do all of this. So if I were you guys, the very first thing I would do would be to leverage your time by doing a weekly webinar, where it's one weekly webinar. And if you're already doing this, feel free to just let me know.
No, we're not. We're
Oh,
not yet.
oh, you guys, totally, you're going to love this. So do one weekly webinar where your goal is to pack out the webinar because you know the value of a potential client. And I'm guessing the ones who do the $2,500 smart hire, they don't necessarily just do it once. Do they sometimes do it twice or even upgrade then to the 7,500?
Yes, absolutely. And for the 7,500 as well, they've been in our database since 2008 to 2010. So we've been nurturing them. But I have several clients that I have one right now that I'm hiring her 12th employee, and we hired her first employee. So we are on her books. I have probably 5 clients that we're on their books every single quarter. We come into their office, we do a VIP strategy day, and they walk out with their strategic roadmap of everything they're going to work on
Wow.
until the next 12 weeks that we walk in there.
Yes. Okay. So a couple things. I almost want to draw it out, but when I do, I start getting a little bit crazy. Okay. So the very first thing I would do is start doing a weekly webinar. Why? Because the webinar time is leveraged. It doesn't matter if there's 10 people or 1,000 on one webinar, it takes up an hour and a half of your time because Rosalind can set it all up, drive all the traffic to it. Super easy for you. You just prep the presentation, show up. It's the same thing as winning people over, one-on-one on sales calls, just with a PowerPoint presentation, sharing with them the benefits and educating them a little bit, but not giving them everything. So that's one thing that's going to really ease up your lead generation time, because now you get to show up for one webinar. An example of this is if I sit there and try to get people manually into SMU, I could be spending all day messaging people one-on-one. And that's probably what you sometimes find yourself doing. Whereas if I say, hey guys,
Yes.
answering all of your questions on this webinar, my goal is, I have one this Thursday. My goal is to pack it out with 1,000 people, because it's one thing. You know what I mean? It's one thing and then it's done. It's, it nurtured a ton of people versus me spending hours and hours and hours nurturing one-on-one. And then because it's a higher ticket program, the $2,500 smart hire. Okay. Smart hire. Yes. Or
Yes, smart hire.
yes, smart hire. So because it's higher ticket, I don't think it's something you can necessarily sell straight from a webinar. You can try to. So I imagine this webinar, kind of following Russell Brunson's perfect webinar. I think this would do very well for white collar services and for your business in particular. And then at the bottom of the video, you're going to have two different offers. So one offer is going to be, yep, I need this now. And that they're able to, click, and with one click they purchase, because sometimes people don't need to hop on the phone. They're ready to buy. They don't need to talk to anybody. And when they fall in love with you guys on the webinar, or just you, then all of a sudden it's like, yep, we're going to buy. And then you see that PayPal or that Stripe notification come through and you're like, yeah, that's a pretty good day. That was a good webinar. But then there's a second button, because not everybody's going to be ready to buy immediately. As you know, it's a big investment. Well, it's not that big if you know the cost of hiring bad employees. So it's actually a great investment. But sometimes people need to talk to someone to say, okay, I have questions. Like, I want to make sure this fits my needs. I want to make sure, I want to make sure that I'm ready to invest, etc. I would probably bring in a sales rep as fast as you possibly can. And here's why: because your time is starting to be worth so much that and I'm serious, like the more you leverage yourself, the more your hour is worth. And spending 30 minutes on a phone call with somebody with a 40 to 60% chance that they'll say yes, it's a little bit tough. It's tough to justify, especially as you get more and more busy and need to bring in more team members. So I would bring in a salesperson who handles those leads. And what they can do is they can either close them at the $2,500 level, or they could say, we actually have something that might fit your needs better. But this is only for VIPs. I would have to get you on the phone with the founder. Are you co-founder?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So for this, only the VIPs get through to our co-founder. And so since we think you'd be a good person for this, and then they mention the price point so that person says, yeah, I want to talk to her. Let's talk about this VIP, opportunity. Now, here's the third point. So there's the webinar is the first point of leverage, and it's going to relieve you of all the lead generation time, the one-on-one conversations. Anyone who asks you a question, you can say, oh my gosh, that's a great question. We've got a webinar on Thursday that answers that exact question for you. Would you want to hear more? Then they say yes, you send them the link, done. Then there's the second point of bringing in a salesperson, which I think the first one needs to come first, the webinar. I think the salesperson is either second or third, because then there's the third point that's going to systematically allow you to leverage your time when on something that seems unleverageable. VIP days seem completely unleverageable. You know what I mean? Because flying around, it's like, travel is tough. I know this, you know this. I almost think that you should do VIPs as a 2-day event at a location where people bring in one or two of their ops people or one of their top trusted people, their hiring managers. And instead of just serving one VIP client, you serve 5 to 10 people, 5 to 10 businesses in a 2-day event, because I'm willing to bet the same systems are in place for every single client. It's just tweaking it slightly for each person. And it gives them that custom feeling. But then, you know what's really cool? It's a tax write-off, and they get to fly somewhere and meet you somewhere cool. And it's like they get to clear their heads. They're away from their office. There's not the stress of everything going on, and you turn it into something really fun. So it's for you and your key hiring person, maybe 1 or 2 people. You rent out a mansion. They're actually really, really affordable to rent if you rent them for just like a month or for 2 days. It's really cost effective when you bring in a lot of VIP people. So you could say our next slot, we only do 1 per quarter, and we only accept 10 people. So when you're loading up these webinars, people are either buying the easy, cheap sells, which you can downsell them on after the webinar. They're buying the $2,500 package, or they're applying to get one of those 10 positions at your quarterly VIP session that is super exclusive. And to be totally honest, I'm willing to bet you could raise the price to $10,000 and let them bring 1 or 2 people, but then have like catered meals. So it's an experience. Suddenly it becomes almost like a vacation. And if someone can afford $7,500, let's be honest, they can afford $10,000. That isn't a huge jump. You know what I mean? It's 25 to 75 that I'd be a little bit unsure about, but 7,500 to 10,000, not an issue, or even 9,500 because it sounds a little better. So then all of a sudden, you're also bringing in a speaker, and that speaker is going to talk to them about something, or you're going to bring in, Rosalind to talk about how to do something. There are different ways that you can bring in experts to give them tons of value. And then all of a sudden at $10,000 a person, you bring in 10, you've got a $100,000 event in 2 days versus $7,500 once a month for all that time commitment of yours.
Wow. I
What do you
love
think?
it.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's fantastic. It's great. And it makes sense. And people are willing to do that. I think people are really ready to travel, and they want an immersion program where they could come for 2 days and leave versus bits and pieces.
Absolutely. And the other thing that's so tough for business owners and hiring managers is when you're in the office, emails come up, employees barge in, there's always an emergency. Instead of focusing completely on this whole process and understanding how to truly hire someone smartly. So the other thing too, as your business grows and you start to make, 6 figures, 7 figures, you're like, okay, I'm looking for some good tax breaks. If we can get a tax break by just paying this extra $2,500 and we get an event and an experience, we're all going to go out to dinner together. There's catered lunches. That sounds like a blast. I'd be like, let's do it. That's a tax write-off, versus just bringing someone in. Then it's like, okay, that's great. But all of a sudden it becomes an amazing experience for their hiring manager, their COO, whatever it is. So I think that would be super fun. David says he loves immersion in all caps. Immersion.
Great.
So those are the 3 different points of relieving yourself, because I think there's so much that you have to do. There's lead gens, there's closing the sales, there's meetings with people. So all 3 of those are going to relieve you of that time that you're spending on your business every single day. David says, and there is a pain point that can come up there too. What is the pain point?
So if they're worried because they can't take time off because they don't have anybody to take the place of them, well, they need to figure out how to hire somebody, and that's where you get to point out to them.
Yes.
Absolutely. Love it.
Yeah. And I like that too, because it's like, I remember when I've been needing to hire a salesperson for way too long, and I haven't done it because it's scary, because you have to pull back from your business for a second to hire someone. And I love the idea of what David said, that pain point, and saying like, you can face it now, or the same issue can keep coming up where you need to hire somebody to fill this spot. And it's never going to get easier. You have to learn how to bring in the team to support the business while you step away.
Absolutely.
So I think that's going to be a really cool plan. Okay, so I don't know if Rosalind's on this. We've got a decent amount of people though today. I don't think Rosalind is. Do you know, David, if she's joining? I think you chatted with her.
She said she was going to try to make it, but
okay.
I'm not sure what happened.
Say what? She's busy? She's so amazing.
No, I'm not sure where she went.
So one of the things that I'll definitely, a lot of this might be like way too much for you to like have to process, so you don't have to. That's the beauty. You can have Rosalind handle a lot of this. One of the biggest things is going to be warming your audience. I'll explain this just real fast, and then Rosalind can see the recap of all this. She can kind of figure it out, or you can talk to her about it. But the first thing I would do is warm the audience before the webinar. So Molly, you're super friendly on camera. Like on camera, you're nice to talk to. And so do you do a lot of video currently?
We used to actually host,
Yeah.
not weekly, but we would do it monthly. And I forgot about that. I got amnesia when you asked me. And we actually have probably 15 different webinars. And I've downloaded Russell's one that we just need to plug and play and update. But we used to do it. And actually, Lainey and I do it together because we're really dynamic together, and we kind of ping pong off one another, and it's worked so fantastic. We still get requests from, hey, I watch this. I remember seeing this webinar that you did for X and X organization. I can't find it. Can I have it? I'll pay you for it if I have to.
Oh my gosh. So you guys have to do some more. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, besides just the webinars, I imagine then if the two of you have a great dynamic together, you could almost batch record a bunch of videos that you'll use for your advertisements. And what I would do is first warm the audience. So for Rosalind's reference, you would do a video view objective with those videos. And it would be like, you hit the pain point in the copy and at the beginning of it. Hiring new employees is a really scary process. Like, how do you know you're going to find the right person and that you're not hit on a pain point, hit on a pain point, hit on a pain point? Well, we're revealing this all to you in our training coming up on this and this date. Be there. You're going to be so amazed with what we have to share with you, because it's time that you end that cycle, fill in the blank. It gives them the promise of the solution that you offered to their pain points. So you start with that video, do the video views objective. And even though you'll have the link to the webinar sign up in the copy, we all know this, all of us, especially in the click, the reality is most people won't convert if they've watched the video. They don't then click and register for the webinar. Some people will, that's great. But what you'll do instead is then you'll remarket to all those video views with the opt-in for the webinar. That's what I would absolutely do. And so then that way you get two touch points, and then plus all the email nurturing before they join the webinar. And then just to clarify, there are the two buttons beneath the webinar. But then after the webinar, anyone who doesn't get the $2,500 or apply for the $7,500 options, absolutely send them a downsell. So now that's where, yes, you didn't sell those people, but 2% sold, and that's awesome. Now you have the ability to sell so many more people with, first you start with like the membership. You said it's $29 a month?
49. Yeah.
49. Okay. So sell them on that. And then you get a couple more people there. And then you sell them another downsell, which is a book. And you send them that as an option. And all of a sudden, then you get 100 purchases of that. And you're like, this is awesome. Everything is always selling. And as one is downselling, the next week's webinar is queuing up. So it's a continual cycle. And before you know it, you'll have fully booked VIPs where you'll be like, this is an awesome experience. And now we're having fun, and if you're renting a mansion, stay one extra day or go one day early, and you and Lainey can just hang out with you and the team and have a blast and be like, this is awesome. We can go get dinner and we can go swimming by the pool. And then it becomes something you love to do.
Yes. Great.
Yeah.
So would you recommend the webinars are evergreen and pre-recorded, or that they're live?
Live. Before you go evergreen, live webinars are definitely the way to go. Anyone who doesn't already know this is really interesting. Pre-recorded webinars drop your conversion rates significantly. So anyone who says like, oh, I just want to do an evergreen webinar, you really have to do between 5 and 10 or even 20 webinars live before you're ready to do an evergreen. But even people who do evergreens find that it's a lot better to do a live webinar weekly. But then the evergreen webinar can always be running in the background so people can access it any day. It's just not the same energy as a live webinar.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I agree. I agree. We've done pre-recorded evergreen webinars, and
Mhm.
people register and they don't show up anyways, and it just, or they ask questions in the chat box, and if your salesperson doesn't see them, then they lose interest and faith.
There's, I'm going to see, I actually know who I can contact, and I'll add this. So one of the things that's cool about these strategy sessions is I type up all my notes for you, and then I'll send it to you. But first,
Oh,
we'll
great.
back. Yeah, I'll post it in the group today, and then anyone who has feedback or thoughts or ideas, they'll share it, and then I'll add those into the notes as well and be like, here was the additional suggestions that the SMU crew had for you. But one of the things I'm going to look into, message Cameron. So there's this, there's one of the webinar platforms, or maybe it's a chat integration, where the chat box pings you on your phone when, yeah, when you get a comment in the chat box on an evergreen webinar. So you can just reply right there in the app. I'm going to figure out what that was, because they literally had people on the phones all the time to manage comments on their evergreen webinar. And he was like, it drastically transformed our conversion rates on our evergreen. So I'll email the person about it, ask about chat reply evergreen. And then I'll figure out what that is. Hopefully I'll get an answer. Maybe it's proprietary, but I love that idea, and I think it makes so much sense. So people feel like they're still getting that live experience. I think the chat responses is one of the reasons that evergreens sync. That's my,
Yes,
that's my gut.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. SMU crew, you guys are quiet. What thoughts do you have so far for Molly? What do you think about this plan? What other ideas do you guys have? So far, to me, this feels like a very solid plan. She seems very savvy. She knows exactly what she needs to do. That, or bring in the right people to do stuff so that she can back off for a second. Tammy loves the plan. Michelle says, I love the automation plan, and Molly is great on camera.
Oh, thank you.
Don't
Thank
you
you.
guys think like she needs to be doing tons of video? Jackie
Thank you.
says, this is exciting, and I see how I could use it with a potential client that I'm working with. So that automation and leverage is huge. And it's so funny because we forget about it. Like when something works well, we forget, as crazy as it is. Business gets busy. I did the same thing. I turned webinars off for almost 6 months, I want to say. I used to do webinars for SMU all the time, and that's how the majority of SMU heard about SMU. And I just totally stopped them. And I was like, why did I do that? That was so great. You know? Let's see. David says, what kind of ad budget do you recommend for Molly? Ooh, I love that question.
Love that. Yes.
Love that question. Okay. The one thing that's going to be a little bit different is that with white collar services, it can be a little bit more expensive for lead generation. As you guys know, like this is business to business a little bit more, even though you're still dealing with a person at a business. And Molly, do you mostly deal with CEOs or founders?
Mostly the founders, again, because it is small businesses. But the interesting thing that we find is that if we can connect with the employees and get in connection with them, is they're the ones that will actually go to their boss and say, you keep dumping this crap on my decks. I don't have time to get to it. So can we hire this person? And we used to get a ton of business from the employees that would come and say, we need you, because the attorneys and or the entrepreneurs are stuck on the phone, stuck in meetings, stuck remaking. So they don't really understand the day-to-day office and administration and the magnitude of how much it really requires.
Yeah. Oh, so one thing that's kind of interesting for targeting for this webinar, I would test out a lot of different titles. Normally I'm like focused on one title or one people group, but you could probably reach out to administrative assistants, managers of offices, because as you know, administrative assistants are usually managers just without the pay or the title. Managers of offices, so sales managers, marketing managers, all of those different titles, managers, operations managers. And I would also reach out to founders. All of president too. They usually go by president over CEO.
Yes.
So what I would consider is, if you did not do the warm-up process of the videos to warm them before you market the webinar to them, to be totally honest, I would probably assume that the cost per registration is going to be a little bit higher for this. I would prepare for that. It could be anywhere from $3 to $6. That's what I would expect. Sometimes we can get cost per registrations of $1 to $3, and that's phenomenal. If that happens with the warm up, great. But I also wouldn't be scared of $3 to $6 per registration. The first couple of times, I would try to get as many people as you feel comfortable with. I would shoot for 100 to 300 registrants because, as you know, not everyone will show up.
Yep.
But the more people that you can get live the first couple of times, the better. So you can keep tweaking it with the data, make it better every single week. So then if you just do the math, let's just say 200 to keep numbers clean, and let's say $5. So $5 times 200 is going to be about $1,000 per webinar. The coolest part of that, as you know, you get one person at the 2,500 and you just broke even. And I think it could be even better than that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting registrants for $1 to $3, if that happens, dump all your money into it. Like, sell that webinar, sell everything you own. And I mean, honestly, then I would spend as much as you humanly possibly can on every single webinar. If you're getting those costs per registrations, then I'd spend $2,000 to $10,000. Don't be scared of it.
So let me just clarify if I can real quick. When you say $1,000, so my total spend is $1,000 and I'm doing my A/B split testing that I may be doing is 2, 3, 5 different campaigns to try to see which one converts the highest, or just spend $1,000 and throw it all into the same campaign.
So here's what I would do. I would create the video views ads first. The cool thing is if you can get video views for 1 to 2 cents or even less sometimes, you can warm a huge audience in a really cost-effective manner. You know, you spend $10 and you just warmed 1,000 people. So I would probably spend maybe $100 on those. And I almost personally like to always have a video views ad running at all times whenever I can. So there's $5 or $10 a day, always running, always building an audience, because that's the long term. If you can't necessarily swing that, or you just want to focus on registrants.
Oh, I can, and I want to, and I'm willing to throw the money into it. Yeah.
So anyone who's running ads at all, always have something warming an audience. Always have some touch point that everyone's always seeing, because the moment you see the difference between a warm audience campaign and a cold audience, you're going to be like, holy cow, I want warm audiences all day. I wish I had spent more here. That's everyone's biggest complaints during launches too. They're always like, we ran out of warm audience. I'm like, I told you we should have put more into it in the beginning.
And how soon do you typically see those? Do you be able to discern between warm and hot audience?
Oh, so fast.
Okay.
Like, what I would recommend for ads is one campaign. If Rosalind knows a lot of this, which is helpful. If you already have 100 pixel fires, then you can do it for a specific event. You can do it for complete registrations. If you don't have that, you have to do it for website traffic, which is tough only because it means you're going to get the most expensive registrations for the webinar. But then as you continue to get more, you can switch to the different objective that's optimized for the conversion. Then it's much more affordable. So it'll only get cheaper if you start with traffic and then switch after 100.
Got it.
Then what I would do is I use about anywhere from 2 to 6 images per ad. I don't like to do more than that because I feel like with 6, you can get 2 of, each style, 2 lifestyle photos, 2 of the person who's going to be speaking, smiling, 2 graphics, that are created in Canva. And then with copy, you really wouldn't want to split test that many different versions or else it gets just confusing. So you could do one that's super informal. That's like, hey, did you just have to fire another employee again? And then talk about it very conversationally. And then the other can be more formal because a part of your audience is very formal and they have that, that traditional language when it comes to everything in their business. So it would be more like, are you ready to start finding employees that last and contribute to your business? Great. Join us on this free webinar. So it's a little more not blue collar, wrong industry, collar buttoned up. On the other side, it's very conversational and appeals to the entrepreneurs that are maybe millennials or just after millennials. And they're like, oh, I love this. It's so different. So I would do maybe 2 different sets of copy. The biggest thing I would test out is different audiences. I think audiences are going to be huge for you. And so within 2 to 3 days, you'll know if an audience is performing based on the cost. I could even show you right now. Let me see if I can pull up. I am running an ad for a webinar that I am doing on Thursday, and I am running a lot of ads for it. Just give me 1 second to pull this up, but I'll show you how fast. I started all these ads last night. Actually, I started half of them last night and half of them today. So as soon as I get this pulled up, I can screen share. Is any of this way too overwhelming, or are you doing okay?
Oh, no, I'm tracking. I'm excited. David asked a question, and
Yep. So with down sales, you can offset the cost. Yes, absolutely. This budget is per webinar, so per week, right? Yep. I mean, ideally, you'd spend about $1,000 per week to make sure your webinars are completely packed out. And then that way you get enough data where you're like, okay, I need to tweak this, or okay, now it's time to bring in a salesperson because I had 5 calls booked out. So I would actually do the order, number 1, webinars. Number 2, the VIP quarterly at a location. And then number 3, the salesperson when you start to get too many calls booked.
okay.
And then the biggest thing is document the whole process so that when you bring that salesperson in, they know, okay, this is what she does. This is what the process is. This is what the script is. That's super helpful. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you. And I'll just show you how fast you can get data on everything. Can you guys see my ads manager?
Yep.
David said he thinks he's seen all my ads this week.
Yeah.
Everyone who has ever talked to me.
I think I hear.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Everyone always sees my ads. I try to keep them fun for that reason. Like, I'm like, okay, how can I put a goofy photo in here? How far can I push the limits, you know? Okay, so this is one campaign that I'm running. The objective is to get registrations for the webinar. All these ones that start with my are all the ones that I started last night. And then all the ones that say cut a combo started today. And these ones are not working as well. They're not bad, but they're not great. The cool thing though is if you average all of these, you'll see like 17 website registrations at 45 cents a piece, 10 for 67 cents, 7 for 94 cents. Like this is a really good campaign. This one's running awesome. These ones down here are a little more expensive, but it's like 207, 101, 193, 170. I already know that a couple of these I'll have to cut tomorrow or later tonight, but I placed these ads at 2 a.m. last night, the top ones, and these ones I placed, I want to say this morning at 9:30, and I've already got data, which is pretty cool. So I can arrange my cost per registration, and so far these are all within limits that I feel comfortable with. Now, if we scroll on down, we don't have data on this chunk right here. They're all racking up costs. I already know that $291 is more than I want to spend for a registration. Here's the craziest thing. This doesn't work as well with small audiences. You can run a ton of ad sets, the same exact audience, regardless of what some people say. And literally one will have great costs and one will have terrible costs, which is why I run a lot of the same ad sets. But that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. 214 is already kind of pushing it. I'm gonna turn that one off. But then if you scroll up, it's like, wow, I've gotten 111 registrations for 80 cents per registration. So I already have data on my audiences. And then obviously you can dive into the ads and have some fun there and be like, okay, which ones are performing the best? Let's see. Cost per registration, well, that's the most expensive. So it looks like it's kind of all across the board. Let's see what the cheapest ones are. These are all the cheapest ones. So it's more of like the graphic-based ones. Yeah, graphic-based ones. Yeah, oh no, this one's no rhyme or reason. All of them are working. That's why I leave them all. And you'll see there's like lifestyle photo. This one, I still don't know how I feel about it, but it's like the back of me in a swimsuit, and I just wanted to see if it performed. I'm like, I don't know if that's like shady or not, but I just wanted to see. I got to test it. You never know. And then these two are graphics. This one's a photo, like a kind of a lifestyle-y, but photo of me.
So
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, did I freeze or did you freeze? Uh-oh. Can you guys hear me?
I got you. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, you're
There we
better.
go. Molly's back.
Yeah, you're
And we've got Rosalind here.
okay.
Yay!
Oh, hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Thanks. I was on calls.
That's wonderful.
So real
Yeah. Go
Real
ahead.
quick, Rachel, so these ads that you just ran,
Mhm.
you have 111 registrations already for that webinar in less than 2 days.
Since 2 a.m. last night, so
2 a.m.
in less than 12 hours. But
Yeah.
I'm very aggressive. Like when I decide I'm going to do a webinar, I'm like, I'm going to hit this so hard, and so then I blow it up as fast as I possibly can because I'm very impatient. So that's not norm. And most of the time when that happens, your costs are going to be really high. Because it's my market, I know it so well, like the back of my hand. The weird thing, David, this is all cold. This isn't a warm audience. These are all cold. I've never
Great.
seen these low of costs on a cold audience. It's a lookalike to my email list. Isn't that crazy? He's like,
He's like,
he's done.
yeah.
I think it's my best copy. I think it's one of my best assortment of photos, and I think it's I don't know why it's working so well, but it is, and so I'm just gonna keep running with this one. This one,
Okay.
like, I am tempted to sell the kids in the car and put all my money into it.
When you say cold audience, does that mean you have not warmed them up at all? You didn't put a video in front of them or nothing?
Nothing. This is like crazy. This is not
It's all
normal.
ads.
Yeah.
Wow. Great. Love it. So how many ads do you have running at the same time? You don't have all those 132 ads running right now, do you?
Yes, I totally do.
Okay, you do. All right.
Yes. So I think how many ad sets were there? Did you see, David? I think there was.
No, I didn't see that.
I closed it already. Sometimes
It's
There's
all right.
a lot.
I've had up to
Yeah.
500 ad sets running at one time to like 5 or 10 different audiences, but 500.
It was 132.
Okay,
I looked.
132 ad sets, and then multiply that by 6, and that's how many ads I have running.
Wow.
So it's a decent amount, but that's kind of what I like to do. Like, yeah. And I don't get a ton of time to work on my business compared to my clients' businesses. So when I do, I'm like, we got to hit this hard. I only have a little bit of time. Let's go. So kind of fun. But I think you guys are going to have a good
Great.
Rosalind, I'm super excited for you to see too what we came up with. It gives you some really fun.
Yes, awesome. I am too. I can't wait to just watch the recording and just take notes and just implement like crazy.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Anyone have any last thoughts for this? I feel like we've got a great plan. I feel like you guys are going to kill it. I'm so excited to see. I'll probably at some point want to join you guys for a VIP session, and I'll need to. Over the next couple months, I'm bringing on a partner in my business, like a
great
partner on the agency side. Very, very exciting. But, I'll want to kind of like pop in on your webinar and see what I can learn about it. So
awesome.
Anyone
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anyone have any last thoughts before we say bye to Molly? Because she's going to have a lot of work to do now to get everything going. Any last thoughts? Drop them in the chat. I'd love to see what you guys think. Michelle says this was awesome. Who got value from this?
Awesome. I did. It's
Yes.
awesome.
Cool. Let's see. Joe said, I learned so much. Megan said, this was great. So valuable. Cool. Tracy says, I did. Looks like people like this. Awesome.
Yes,
Molly.
it's awesome.
Thank you for joining
Thank you for having me. It was so fun. And thank you, David, as well, and everyone for your amazing comments.
Cool.
Sure thing.
Cool. Thank you, Molly. I hope you guys have such a great day. Thank you again for joining us. We'll talk to you later. Bye, everyone. I'll see you in SMU.
Bye.